Eli McGraw was a simple man living on the edge of a dusty desert town in New Mexico. He had inherited the old ranch from his grandfather, a man who believed in hard work, silence, and cattle over people. Eli followed that same path, keeping his boots on the ground and his heart locked tight. He was 32 years old but still untouched, still unkissed, still unsure of how to talk to a woman without sweating through his shirt. Most days began with the sun and ended with the stars. He fed his horses, repaired fences, and talked only to his dog, Moose. The radio was always low, the coffee always black, and the nights were always quiet. Eli didn't complain, but something inside him was beginning to ache. Something he didn't know how to name. In town, the other ranchers talked about women, about wild nights and whiskey in hands under moonlight. Eli would listen, nod, and smile, but inside he felt small. He had never even held a girl's hand. It wasn't that he didn't want to. He just didn't know how to start. People whispered sometimes. They called him the quiet one, the slow one, the virgin on the hill. He had heard it all but never fought back. He believed love should be something deep, something rare, and maybe even something sacred. One afternoon, Eli stood on his porch. Watching a storm gather in the distance, the sky turned gray, and thunder rolled like a distant drum. That's when he saw them, 3 riders coming fast from the ridge. Tall women on horseback wrapped in feathers, leather and strength. They were Apache, proud and unbothered, riding like the wind didn't dare touch them. They pulled up at his gate, their horses' restless eyes sharp. The tallest one dismounted with ease, her shadow stretching across the dirt like a monument. Her name was Nala, and she was unlike anyone Eli had ever seen. She wasn't just tall, she was powerful, built like a tree rooted deep into the earth. Her skin glowed like burnished copper, her eyes dark with confidence, and her voice rumbled low and clear when she spoke.
"Wagon axle broke," she said, not asking, just stating.
Eli cleared his throat and nodded, feeling smaller than ever. "You can stay here, till it's fixed," he said. Eyes on the ground, hands shaking slightly. Nala gave him a long look, her mouth curling at one side. "Kind of you," she replied, then motioned for her sisters to follow. They set up camp just behind the barn. Eli offered tools, water, and wood for the fire. He didn't ask many questions, and they didn't offer many answers, but as the sun sank, something strange filled the air, a kind of energy Eli hadn't felt before. It was bold, wild, and feminine, wrapped in smoke and laughter and the sound of drums in the back of his mind. That night he watched them from his porch. Nala sat closest to the fire, skin glowing orange from the flames. She leaned back, laughed loud, and told stories in a language he didn't understand but still felt in his bones. Her eyes would sometimes meet his. And each time they did, Eli felt something shift, something break free from inside his ribs. Moose barked once and Eli shushed him gently. "Be quiet," he whispered. "She's a storm." He didn't sleep much that night. His body lay in bed, but his heart wandered to the fire, to her face, to the words she might say if she ever looked into him instead of at him. In all his years, no woman had made him feel like this, not even close. He didn't know then that Nala was about to change everything, that she didn't come to the ranch by chance, that some storms don't just pass and they stay. They burn and crack and make the land new again. And Eli, the virgin on the ranch, was finally about to meet his match. The morning sun stretched its arms across the desert plains, brushing the ranch with soft golden light. Eli had barely slept, his dreams tangled with firelight and the face of the tall woman who now camped on his land. He stood at the sink, washing yesterday's mug, when the sound of hooves shook the air again. Not gentle clops, but powerful, pounding strikes that sounded like thunder rolling across the dirt. He rushed outside, boots half-laced, shirt open at the collar. There they were, the Apache Sisters, already riding in wide circles behind the barn. Their laughter echoed off the hills. Wild and free, Nala rode bareback, her hair untied, flying like a black river in the wind. Eli leaned against the porch rail, watching, unsure if he was intruding or invisible. He hadn't seen women ride like that before. Not like cowgirls in rodeos, not like tourists taking selfies. These women moved as if the horses were part of their souls, as if wind, muscle, and spirit had formed an ancient bond. Nala pulled her horse into a sudden stop. Dust rising like a cloud behind her, she looked directly at Eli, her voice ringing out across the field. "You ride, rancher?" Eli blinked, then nodded slowly. "I do," he called back, voice cracking just a little. "Show me," she said. without smiling, without teasing. It wasn't a dare. It wasn't a joke, and it was a test, and Eli, for the first time in a long time, didn't want to fail. He walked to the stable, saddled his old Mustang, and rode out to meet her. The horse grunted under him, sensing his tension. Eli wasn't used to riding under watchful eyes, especially not hers. But something inside him burned, a kind of fire that hadn't lit in years. They rode side by side for a few minutes. Not speaking, the other sisters drifted off. Giving them space, the wind whistled through the mesquite trees, and the earth crunched under hooves. Then Nahla broke the silence. "You were watching us last night," she said. Eli flushed, gripping the reins tighter. "I wasn't spying," he muttered, "just watching the fire, same thing," she replied, her voice cool. "But it's all right," she added. After a pause, "Fire is meant to be seen." He looked at her, unsure of what she meant, but not brave enough to ask. Her gaze stayed forward, locked on the path ahead. Then suddenly, she pulled her horse into a full stop. "We race," she said. "To the ridge and back." Eli hesitated. "That's a rough trail," he said. "Steep drop near the edge," she shrugged. "Then don't fall." Before he could answer, she was gone, her horse bolting forward like a lightning strike. Eli cursed softly, then kicked his heels and followed. The wind slapped his face, the hooves beat like drums in his ears. He pushed harder than he had in years, his heartbeat matching the rhythm of the ride. She was ahead, but not far. He leaned low, whispered to his Mustang, and surged forward. The ridge grew closer, tall, rocky, dangerous. With a cliff that looked like it could swallow a careless rider whole, they reached the top neck and neck. Horses snorting, sweat dripping. Nahla looked over and grinned, the first real grin he had seen from her. "You didn't fall," she said. "Not yet," Eli breathed. Still trying to catch air, they both dismounted, letting the horses drink from a small stream that ran through the rocks. For a moment, everything was still. Just the sound of the breeze and the soft murmur of water. Eli looked at the horizon. Feeling strangely alive, he didn't know why. But something had changed. Maybe it was the race. Maybe it was the fire from the night before. Or maybe it was her. The way she looked at him, without judgment, without pity, without laughter. Nahla walked toward him slowly, her boots quiet on the dirt. She stood close, not touching, but close enough for him to feel her warmth. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. Eli swallowed hard. "I know," he said. "Most men would have tried something by now." She tilted her head. "Have you?" He shook his head, eyes fixed on the ground. "I haven't," he whispered. "Not just you, anyone." Her expression didn't change, but her voice softened. "Why?" "I guess I'm waiting," he said. "For the right moment, the right person. Maybe even the right reason." Nahla reached out and brushed a bit of dust from his shoulder. Then she looked into his eyes and said nothing. But in that silence, Eli heard more than words. He heard the start of something wild, something warm, something that wasn't just about lust or loneliness. It was something deeper, and maybe, just maybe, it was beginning right here at the edge of the ridge. The sun was high when Eli and Nahla rode back from the ridge. Their horses slower now, breathing heavy, tails flicking dust with every step. The other two sisters, Tala and Misa, were sitting beside the broken wagon, surrounded by pieces of wood, iron, and frustration. Tala stood as they returned, arms crossed, her brow tight with impatience. "Still busted," she said, kicking the broken axle lying on the ground. "We need tools. Maybe even a new wheel." Eli dismounted and led his horse to the water trough. "I got spares in the barn," he offered. "Might take a day. Maybe two." Misa, the youngest sister, clapped her hands. "Then we stay, yes?" she asked, eyes dancing with mischief. Nahla didn't respond right away. Instead, she walked over to the wagon, crouched beside the broken wheel, and ran her hand along the cracked edge. Then she looked back at Eli, her face unreadable. "We stay," she said simply. Eli nodded, though his chest felt tight. The thought of these women, especially her, staying another day made his heart thump like a drum. He told himself it was just hospitality, just kindness, but he knew better. He had never wanted company more than he did now. The sisters began setting up a proper camp. Blankets were stretched over lines, firewood was stacked. Herbs were hung near the cooking pot. They moved like dancers, each knowing her step. Each flowing with purpose. Eli watched from a distance, unsure where he fit in their rhythm. Later that evening, he brought them tools, a wrench, a hammer, A few rusty bolts. He knelt beside Nala and tried to show her how the pieces fit. She didn't say much, just listened, nodded, and worked with steady hands. Who taught you this? She asked after a while, tightening a bolt with practiced fingers. My grandfather, Eli replied, wiping sweat from his brow. He built this ranch with his own hands, taught me everything I know. Even though he barely spoke. Men of silence, she said. Carry heavy things. He looked at her then, really looked. Her arms strong, skin dusted with sweat, jaw set with focus, but her eyes held something deeper, something tired, something lonely. He wondered if she carried heavy things too. That night, Eli invited them to eat by the porch. He grilled meat over coals and brought out beans. Bread and sweet tea. The sisters accepted with nods and smiles, sitting around his wooden table like they belonged there. Nala sat across from him, tearing bread with her hands. Tala talked about wild horses in the north. Misa giggled about a white boy who tried to impress her with magic tricks. The air was filled with laughter, stories, and the smell of fire-kissed food. For the first time in a long time, the ranch didn't feel empty, it felt alive, as if the wind carried music and the stars blinked in rhythm with the conversation. After dinner, Nahla stayed behind to help wash the dishes. They stood by the outdoor basin, hands brushing now and then, eyes catching longer than they should. You always live like this? She asked, scrubbing a plate. Like what? Eli asked, handing her another, alone, quiet, watching the world from a porch. He thought for a moment, then nodded. I guess I do. Nala placed the plate down and turned toward him. You think that's living? Eli hesitated, the question sinking deep. I don't know, he said quietly. It's safe, it's simple. But maybe it's not enough anymore. She didn't respond. Just looked at him, her eyes softer now, not testing, not teasing, just seeing. And for once, Eli didn't look away. The moon rose above them, casting silver across the barn and the dusty path that led to the ridge. Crickets sang. The night breeze cooled their skin, and the silence between them felt warm instead of awkward. Nala reached for a towel and dried her hands. Then she turned to go, but paused at the doorway. You're not what I expected, rancher, she said over her shoulder. Eli raised an eyebrow. And what did you expect? Someone colder, she replied. Someone who'd look at me like a problem. Not a person. Eli stepped forward, his voice low. Then maybe you've been around the wrong kind of men. She gave a small smile. Not wide, but real. Then she walked into the night, leaving Eli standing in the moonlight, heart full of questions, hands still warm from hers. The fire cracked softly under the blanket of the night sky. The flames danced slow, golden and alive, casting long shadows across the ground. The desert was quiet, but the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like it was holding its breath. Eli sat on an old wooden stool just a few feet from the fire, his plate empty but still on his lap. The Apache sisters sat around the flames, their blankets wrapped around their shoulders. Tala was carving something from bone. Misa was humming a strange little song. Nala sat cross-legged, a small clay cup in her hand. Her eyes focused on the fire, not the people. Eli had been invited to sit with them, not with words, but with glances and space made beside the flames. He wasn't used to this. He wasn't used to people just letting him be, no jokes. No challenges, no cold distance. They spoke in turns, sometimes switching to their native tongue, sometimes falling quiet for whole minutes. Eli didn't interrupt. He listened as if learning a language made of warmth, rhythm, and fire. Nala finally looked up, her gaze catching him in the middle of a thought. You ever kill a deer, rancher? She asked, voice low, almost like a story beginning. Eli blinked, pulled back to the moment. Few times when I had to, he said. I don't enjoy it. Good, Nala nodded. You respect life, Misa laughed lightly. He probably cried after, Eli chuckled. Only once, he said. It was a baby buck. Still had spots. Tala looked up from her carving, her voice soft but firm. Most men kill easy, feel nothing. Most men were taught wrong, Nala added, her eyes still on Eli. The fire popped loudly, sending sparks into the night. Eli leaned forward, arms resting on his knees. What about you? He asked, not just to Nala but all of them. Ever had to do something hard and hated it? They were quiet for a moment, then Tala spoke, her voice carrying the weight of memory. Our mother died giving birth to Misa, she said. I was 10, Nala was 12. Eli looked down, nodding slowly. I'm sorry, he said. Nala didn't respond to the sorrow, only added, Our father raised us like warriors. But he cried when she passed. every night for a year. I heard him cry. The fire crackled louder now, like it was listening too. I don't cry easy, Nahla added, her voice lower now. But I carry things. Eli looked at her hands. Strong and scarred. He wondered what those hands had built. Broken, protected, or lost. He wondered what she carried that no one saw. Misa broke the silence this time, her voice more playful. I think our Nahla needs to cry or kiss. Or fight. She's been holding it all in. Nahla didn't flinch. Instead, she took a sip from her clay cup and looked straight at Eli. Tell me something true, rancher, she said. Eli hesitated, unsure what to give, a memory, a weakness, a fear. Then he swallowed and looked into the fire. I'm a grown man who's never touched a woman, he said, voice soft but steady. I've been alone most of my life. Not because I wanted to be, but because I didn't know how not to be. No one laughed. No one looked away. Even Misa stayed quiet, her teasing gone. I thought love would find me one day, Eli continued. But I kept building fences around myself. And I guess I got good at being invisible. Nahla watched him for a long moment. Her eyes didn't judge, didn't pity. They held something else that may be understanding. Maybe respect, maybe a shared silence. I haven't had sex in 6 months, Nahla said suddenly. The words hit the air like a stone dropped in a calm river. Tala looked up. Misa grinned and Eli's face turned red instantly. He looked away, fumbling for something to say. Didn't ask, he mumbled. You didn't have to, Nahla said. You gave me your truth. I gave you mine, Eli exhaled slowly. Well, thanks for sharing. I think, he said, voice half laughing. Half panicking, Misa giggled again. She likes you, she whispered loudly. That's why she's dangerous, Nahla didn't deny it. She simply leaned back, eyes on the stars, and added, Truth isn't always pretty, rancher, but it's the only place real things begin. And with that, the fire burned on. No more stories were told that night. Just silence, wind, and a strange warmth that lingered between two people who had both learned how to live in quiet. But maybe, just maybe, we're ready to learn how to speak with something more than words. The morning sun spilled over the hills like honey. Soft light touched the roof of the barn, the fence posts, and the wagon that still sat half-repaired behind the ranch. Eli stepped out with a mug of coffee. Barefoot, his shirt only half-buttoned, sleep still clung to his eyes, but his thoughts were fully awake, echoing words from last night's fire. I haven't had sex in 6 months. He hadn't expected Nahla to say that. Not in front of her sisters, not in front of him. It wasn't just the sentence, it was the way she said it. Like she was reporting the weather or stating a fact about the stars. She said it without shame, without humor, without fear. And that shook something in him. Because for Eli, even saying the word sex aloud felt like crossing a line. As he sipped his coffee and leaned against the porch railing, he saw her, Nahla, already awake, standing by the corral where his horses were grazing. She was brushing the mane of his oldest mare, her hands gentle, her eyes quiet. She looked like someone who had fought battles, both outside and inside, and somehow survived without turning cold. Eli walked over, the gravel warm under his feet. Morning, he said. Voice low, she nodded but didn't turn. This one's smart, she said, patting the horse's neck. You talk to her much? Eli smiled. Sometimes more than people. That's why she trusts you, Nahla replied, finally looking at him. She can feel when someone sees her soul. There was a silence between them, but it wasn't heavy. It was filled with the sound of wind, the flick of the mare's tail, and two hearts learning the shape of each other. Eli cleared his throat. About what you said last night, he began. I meant it, she interrupted, voice calm. You don't have to dance around it. Eli looked down, his ears already turning red. I've just never been around someone who talks so plain, he admitted. You mean a woman who owns her body? She asked, a hint of steel in her voice. No, not just that, Eli said quickly. I mean someone who's honest, who doesn't hide behind games or silence, Nahla softened. Just a little where I'm from, she said. We speak what we feel, or it eats us from the inside. She walked a few steps away, then turned back to face him. I haven't had sex in 6 months, she repeated. Slower this time, not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to waste myself. Eli met her gaze, steady now. Waste yourself on what? Men who take, she said. Men who want the body but not the spirit. Who chase heat but fear depth, he nodded slowly. The words sinking into him. I guess I've been the opposite, he said. I've waited so long for something real I started to think maybe I was broken. You're not broken, she said simply. You're just rare, the mare snorted softly. Breaking the stillness, Eli reached out and stroked her nose, more to ground himself than anything. I don't know what you're looking for, Nala, he said, voice quiet. But I'm not afraid of you. She stepped closer, the sun catching the curve of her cheekbone, the strength in her jaw. I'm not looking for a lover, rancher, she said. I'm looking for a witness, Eli blinked. A witness? Yes, she whispered. Someone who sees me when I don't speak. Who hears me when I say nothing, who isn't scared of the storm inside. Their eyes locked, and something passed between them. Not lust, not even love yet, but a shared ache, a shared silence, a shared need to be understood, not just touched. You don't have to fix me, she added. Just stand beside me and not flinch. I can do that, Eli said, surprising even himself. I've stood through thunder, drought, wild bulls, and years of loneliness. I can stand beside a storm if she'll let me. Nahla smiled then. A real one. Slow and crooked. The kind that made the air shift. And for a moment, Eli didn't feel small or nervous. He felt chosen. The wind picked up, rustling the grass and the skirts of her dress. From inside the house, Moose barked once, as if sensing something sacred was unfolding outside. Nala looked up at the sky, then back at Eli. You've got good land, she said. But it's been missing a wildflower, he chuckled. You calling yourself a flower? I bloom in fire, she said, and I don't wilt easy. They both laughed, and the sound wasn't loud, but it felt full. Like something had opened between them, and not a door, but a gate, and just like that. The blunt confession wasn't heavy anymore, it was just true. And between two people standing under a desert sky, truth was the most intimate thing either had ever shared. The desert morning arrived with a soft golden hush. Eli woke before the rooster crowed, stirred by something that wasn't noise but a pull in his chest. He slipped on his boots without tying them and stepped outside. Blinking at the sharp early sun, Nala was already awake, sitting on the wooden fence that wrapped around the corral. She wore a loose tan shirt that swayed in the breeze and riding trousers that hugged her form like they belonged to the land itself. Her hair was tied back, but a few wild strands danced around her face. She didn't look surprised to see him, as if she knew he would come out without her calling. You ready? She asked, tossing him a piece of bread wrapped in cloth. Eli caught it clumsily. Ready for what? He asked, voice rough with sleep. A ride, she said, hopping off the fence, landing like a stone dropped in perfect balance. To the edge of the east ridge and back. That far? He asked, chewing the bread. What for? Nala led her horse out of the pen, brushing dust from its flank. If you want to know someone, ride beside them when the world's still half asleep, she said. No words, no masks, just hooves and breath. Eli saddled up his old Mustang. The same one he'd ridden on their first race. She waited patiently, her horse already nudging the gate. Eager to run, they rode in silence at first, the rhythm of hooves blending with the heartbeat of the land. The desert wasn't empty. It was alive in quiet ways. Rabbits darted through brush. Birds traced invisible lines in the sky. Every sound was part of the land's music. Eli glanced at Nala as they rode side by side. Her eyes were fixed ahead, focused and calm. She didn't speak until the ranch was a speck behind them, swallowed by sand and sun. You ever run away from anything? She asked, her voice cutting through the stillness. Eli thought for a long time before answering. Once, he said, when I was 16, I ran from a girl who wanted to kiss me. Nala raised an eyebrow, smiling slightly. Why? Because I didn't know what to do with something that real, he said. I was scared I'd mess it up. She nodded like that answer didn't surprise her. Most men run toward what they want, she said. But not you. He looked down at the reins, the leather warm in his hands. Maybe I run away from what I want the most, he said softly. To protect it from me. They stopped near a dry riverbed lined with stone. Nala dismounted first and tied her horse to a bent mesquite tree. Eli followed, though his legs were stiff from the long ride. She climbed a low ridge and sat down, back straight, eyes on the horizon. Eli joined her, the wind tugging at their shirts. This is where I come to think, Nahla said. When I need answers the world can't give me. You've come here before? He asked, surprised. She nodded. Before you, before your ranch. Before that broken wagon. I've been here alone. The silence wrapped around them again. This time warmer, Eli watched her face. The way the light touched her cheekbones. The way her hands rested without tension. She looked like a statue carved from the land itself. Powerful and still. "I want to ask you something," she said suddenly, not turning to look at him. "Anything," he replied without thinking. "If I kissed you right now," she asked, "would you run again?" Eli's throat tightened. The question held no seduction. Only truth and a gentle challenge laid in front of him like a knife on a table. He looked at her and she looked back. Not blinking, not begging, just waiting. "I wouldn't run," he said. Voice steady now. "I'd probably freeze, forget to breathe, maybe mess it up. But I wouldn't run." Nala nodded once. "That's all I wanted to know," she said. "Not because I'm going to kiss you now, but because I need to trust your answer before I give you anything that matters." Eli felt his chest swell with something deep and unfamiliar. Not pride, not victory, something softer, more sacred. Like being seen after years of being invisible. "Then what's this ride for?" he asked gently. "To see if you'll keep showing up," she said, standing, "even when there's no fire, no teasing, no easy reward." She mounted her horse and looked back at him, her hair wild in the morning breeze. "Let's head back, rancher," she said. "The real work starts when the sun gets high." And with that, she rode off, not too fast, not too far, just enough to see if he would follow. And Eli did without hesitation. Not because he was chasing her, but because somewhere between the ridges and rivers, he had stopped running from himself. The sun sat low in the sky, casting orange light across the desert like fire spread thin. The wind was quiet that evening, almost like the land itself had paused to listen. Eli stood by the barn, brushing the dust off his shirt, his eyes fixed on the eastern ridge. That ridge had started to mean something now, a place where silence turned into something sacred. He didn't see Nala coming, but he heard her horse before he saw her face. The soft rhythm of hooves in the sand, the whisper of reins pulled tight. She stopped just a few feet away, her eyes shadowed beneath the wide brim of her hat. "You promised you wouldn't run," she said. Her voice calm as ever. Eli nodded. "I remember." "Good," she said. "Because we're going back up to the ridge." He didn't ask why. He didn't need a reason anymore. Some places don't ask for permission. They just call you back when it's time to tell the truth. They rode in silence again. The kind of silence that doesn't demand to be filled. The desert changed colors as they moved, from golden to amber, then to a deeper rust red. By the time they reached the ridge, the sky had begun to bleed into night. They dismounted slowly, letting the horses rest near a cluster of brush. Nala walked ahead and sat on a flat rock near the edge. Legs crossed, eyes forward. Eli followed and sat beside her. Not too close, but not far either. "This is where I buried my fears," she said after a long while. Eli turned toward her but said nothing. "When I was 17, my father brought me here after I tried to leave the tribe." "You tried to leave?" he asked, surprised. Nala nodded. "I wanted to live in the city, feel unknown, disappear. I was tired of being the tall one, the strong one, the girl expected to carry everything." Eli looked down at his hands. "I know something about that," he whispered. She glanced at him sideways. "I thought you might." The wind picked up, tossing her braid over one shoulder. "He didn't stop me from going," she said. "He just brought me here first, told me if I was going to leave. I had to do it from the highest place I knew." Eli smiled faintly. "Did you leave?" "I did," she answered, "for a year. I slept in a shelter, worked 2 jobs, fought off 2 men, and buried a friend who overdosed." Eli's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it. She shrugged. "It made me realize what strength really is," she said. "Not how loud you are, not how fast you hit on, but what you carry and still walk forward." The ridge fell into stillness again, the world below shrinking into shadows. Nala turned to him, her voice lower now. "I tell you this because I see the same weight in you," she said. "You walk around quiet, but your silence is heavy." Eli stared at the sky, blinking hard. "My silence used to protect me," he admitted. "Now it just keeps me alone." "I don't want to fix you," she said gently. "I just want to know where you're broken." That broke something in him. Not in a painful way, but like a knot finally coming undone after years of pulling. "I don't know how to be with someone," he whispered. "Not truly." "Then don't be with someone," she said. "Just begin with someone." They sat in that moment, 2 people stripped of every mask. Every wall, every excuse, no clever lines, no forced laughs. No pretending to be something they weren't. Eli turned to her slowly. What do you see in me, Nala? She smiled softly. A man who listens, she said. A man who feels everything and hides it like treasure. A man who's been waiting to be chosen, even if he never said it aloud. His breath caught in his chest. Are you choosing me? She stood and held out her hand. I'm inviting you, she said, to see if you can stand beside someone who doesn't need saving. Just seeing. He took her hand. Not because he knew what would happen next, but because for the first time in his life, he felt ready to be seen not as a rancher, or a quiet man or a virgin, but just as Eli, and under the starlit sky, on the same ridge where fear once lived. Two souls sat shoulder to shoulder, not lovers yet, not anything that needed a label, just witnesses to each other's truth, and that was more intimate than anything either had ever known. The stars blinked slowly in the sky, like 1,000 soft witnesses to the quiet unfolding beneath them. Eli stood on the ridge with Nala's hand still in his, unsure if he was holding on or letting go of something old. The air between them felt different now, not heavy, not nervous, just still. They didn't speak on the ride back. The hooves were slow this time, like even the horses knew not to rush this return. When they reached the ranch, the fire by the barn had already gone low, but a faint orange glow still flickered in the pit. The sisters were inside the tent, laughter replaced by quiet breathing. It was just him and her again, but the silence no longer felt like something to fear. Nala tied her horse and stretched her shoulders with a low sigh. Eli dismounted and stood beside her. The words in his throat refusing to rise, she turned to him. Eyes darker now in the low light, not intense, but soft, like earth cooled by midnight breeze. I meant what I said on the ridge, she whispered. I don't need saving. I know, Eli said, his voice low and certain. And I don't need to be proven anymore. Her head tilted slightly, curious. What do you mean? I used to think I had to be something before I could be with someone, he said. Brave, confident, perfect. But now I think I just had to stop hiding. Nala stepped closer, closing the space that had always existed between them. Invisible, wide, sacred. Her voice was barely a breath. And are you still hiding? Eli looked down at his hands, then up into her face. No, he said simply. I'm not. She reached out and touched his chest, not as an invitation, not as a seduction, just a moment of recognition. Her palm rested over his heart, feeling the quiet thunder inside him. You feel everything too deeply, she whispered. Most men are afraid of what they feel. I used to be, Eli admitted. But not with you. There it was. Not a confession, not a request. Just a truth placed gently in the space between them. She dropped her hand slowly, her fingertips trailing the fabric of his shirt like a memory already forming. You've never been kissed, have you? She asked. Eli exhaled through a quiet smile. No, he said, but I've thought about it more than I care to admit. Do you want your first one to be now? She asked, her voice no longer teasing. Just honest, just kind? He paused, not because of fear, but because the moment deserved care. He didn't want it to be a reward or a performance. He wanted it to mean something, not just to him, but to her too. Yes, he said finally, but only if you're not doing it out of pity. Nala's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. She stepped even closer, their breath now mingling in the cool night air. Pity is soft, she said. This is not. She leaned in slowly, and when their lips met, it was not a spark, not a fire. It was warmth, slow, steady, and grounding. Like the first rain after a long dry season. Like a door opening in a house he didn't know he had been locked inside. She didn't rush, she didn't demand, and when she pulled away, she kept her forehead pressed lightly against his. That was your first? She whispered. Eli nodded, eyes still closed. And it felt like something I waited my whole life for, he said. They stood like that for a while. Two people beneath a canopy of stars. No one clapping, no music swelling in the background. Just breath and presence and peace. Nala stepped back, her smile small but real. You're different, rancher, she said. And if you let yourself grow from here, you might become something rare. He looked at her with quiet wonder. What's that? A man who loves without fear, she said. A man who doesn't chase or control, but chooses. Eli felt the truth settle into him like seeds dropped into tilled soil. He didn't feel changed in a loud way. He just felt whole. Do I get to choose you? He asked softly. Nala nodded once. Only if you understand that choosing means showing up every day, Not just when it's easy. I've shown up to an empty ranch for 10 years, he said. I think I'm ready to show up for something real now. And with that, she touched his hand one more time, not to hold it, but to tell him silently, this is just the beginning, and Eli understood. Because some love stories don't start with passion or perfection. They begin with honesty, with patience, with firelight and quiet rides to a lonely ridge. They begin with two people who don't try to fix each other, just see each other. And for Eli, that first kiss wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of becoming the man he was always meant to be.